I got my hair did today, and I said, give me the discontent lesbian, and they gave it to me. After looking at my hair and realizing that I did get the discontent lesbian haircut, I realized I was a diva. Thank you.
Action.
So I just wanted to point out to Jason House's listeners, if you heard the interview that I did a while back with the Conspirinormal dudes, you saw the picture where I was in front of the Marriott that's new here in Nashville. And I wanted to show you that it actually does have a binary code, something from the Matrix, whoa, like Neo. And guess who's quoted at the bottom? It's none other than H.G. Wells himself. So as you can see, H.G. Wells. And H.G. Wells, of course, famous Mason. And this new Marriott actually has 33 floors. Likewise, of course, on the ground, there are these really interesting quotes from other illuminists like Arthur C. Clarke that revolutionary ideas have the ability to change society. We have quotes from JFK, ask not what H.G. Wells can do for you, but what you can do for the New World Order, which is all, of course, propaganda. Marcus Garvey, Watson, the behaviorists, right? Whitehead, process philosophy, and there you have it. A giant, weird, creepy pylon promoting technocracy. If there's one thing Taylor Swift is known for, it's education. 2 and 2 is 4. 4 and 4 is 8. Do you know how many underprivileged children Taylor Swift has educated and helped? 8 million. 8 million ghetto childs, all taught times tables by Taylor Swift at the Taylor Swift Educational Center. Thank you, Taylor Swift. We love you.
You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. You can run on for a long time. Run over a long time. You can run over a long time.
One of the interesting things about Nashville is that it's intended to be the new Athens, the new Greece, and there's also an aspect of the new Memphis, hence Memphis, Tennessee, Athens, Georgia, Atlanta, right? And then hence Nashville has the Parthenon, and you can see there's all these bizarre statues of the gods everywhere.
Do you think I'm spooky?
It's a beautiful day, not a cloud in sight, so I guess I'm doing alright. Thanks. I'm alright. Got a good old friend here with me tonight, and I guess I'm doing alright.
Ever wanted to go to church at Masonic Lodge? Now you can at Gay Presbyterian here in Nashville. And literally, the church was designed by a lodge master. You'll notice there the unicursal Crowleyan hexagram inside the hoofed like posts at the lodge. Interesting. This is the lodge in Nashville that, rumor has it, Patrick Swayze himself was a secret member of. Now I had the time of my life, and I've never felt this way before. Never felt. Yes, I swear it's so true, and I owe it all to you. Patrick Swayze's Masonic Lodge. Dirty dancing all night. Yeah. Nice and handy that right after your lodge meeting and your potluck, feasting on flesh, you can just walk over to First Baptist Church across the street. Brother Baptist at the potluck, feasting on the flesh of the innocents. Welcome to Nashville. This is the Ryman, where of course all the country acts play. And tonight, Bill Cosby will be performing at the Ryman. His famous boomer routine.
Do you know what bathroom to go into? The people confused. Do you got junk? Go into the bathroom on the left. Do you not got junk? Go into the people. The bathroom on the right. This is very simple.
The Ryman. And then the Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators play. And where hot chicks walk mindlessly about. Neocon blues, neocon blues. Get you a nice pair of neocon boots. She went in the back to get high. I sat on the roof and cried. She's gone country, look at them boots. Let her cry. As the tears roll down my face, let her cry, cry. As the tears roll down my face, let her cry. And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her cry. Boomers love pushing this giant black ball that they think powers Nashville. Literally, the boomers think this powers the city of Nashville. It's not actually true. As you see, the memorial relates to the United Nations, not just the United Nations, but you got it, the Illuminate Confirm Manhattan Project. Manhattan Project, of course, is Oak Ridge, Tennessee, under the Atomic Energy Commission. And in the elite mythology, it's actually the nuclear myth that has given us world peace. We covered this, of course, in the Tragedy and Hope talks, but I just want to point out that Nashville has this very interesting new park, right, where they have made a monument to supposedly servicemen. But as you can see, as we'll walk over here to the Echo Park, you stand in the middle and you shout things and it echoes, which is really weird. I'm not sure why, but it also has the layout. If you look from the top, the whole structure, there's a lot of theories and speculation about what the layout maps up to ancient Egypt. I think that's very plausible because, as we said, Athens, Atlanta, Memphis, Nashville, they all have both Greek and Egyptology, Greek culture and Egyptology in the background of why they are laid out the way they are, the archaeometry and so forth. So it's all very real, but I just wanted to point this out at the park itself. While it's true that many people fought wars for a good motivation, it's also important to point out that from the elite perspective, war is also a human sacrifice. A mass human sacrifice, isn't it? And you'll notice here the present incarnation of it with the you-know-what. And then we're not actually sure what this water ball is, but it could easily be a black sun cube. I'm not sure. I mean, yes, right, black sun Nazi, but what's this black sun? So in the midst of it's not an amphitheater, I don't know what to call it. We see the Tennessee Stars, and then you're surrounded by the pillars at the tip of the park, and it makes a very long, extended tip. If you can see, it's got a lot of girth and a lot of length. You know what I'm saying? All this extending from the Capitol down to here, which is interesting. And then you're supposed to stand in the middle at a point, the middle of the stars with this little metal point. You look next to my gangrene bunion toe. You see it? And it does echo. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It sounds really weird. Hey, Macarena. Macarena. Hey, Macarena. She went in the back to get high. I stood on the roof and cried. I felt sorry for myself. Oh, I just can't stop weeping. In 1936, the first woman became a candidate in socialist case. Remember, I can't stop weeping. And we got to be proud of the first Piggly Wiggly. By the way, Poggly Woggly was sued by Piggly Wiggly.
That shit racist. That shit racist.
Uh-oh. Look at that. It's Jamie. And it's Jamie. Woo! Synchronicity. Synchronicity. Hollywood, Babylon. Hollywood, Babylon. Hollywood, Babylon. Hollywood, Babylon. Hollywood, Babylon. Mother, tell your children not to hold my hands. Tell your children not to understand. Mother. That's a kumquat. That is a kumquat.
It is not.
It is. It's a kumquat.
It's an air plant.
Did you know plants are of the devil? I don't eat plants anymore. Plants are for the slaves. I eat meat. Plants are slave slop. Don'teatplants.com. Hashtag don't eat plants. Don't touch that marijuana. That's the dope. That's what the dopers are into. Don't touch that marijuana.
If you come to Tennessee, don't miss the jug, sister.
Proof of the cheetah Uri. David Ork and the cheetah Uri. As I was saying, you'll notice the pyramid structure here that used to be next to the Parthenon during the celebration, Centennial celebration, and it just confirms the obsession with Egyptology that we've been talking about. You'll notice the pyramid was fitted with all the Egyptian symbolism, marrying Egypt with ancient Hellenic Greece. Real art reserved for the outer hallway is replaced by the absurdity of modern gibberty-gook nonsense art where your head becomes your instrument. Even to the point of Billy Beer.
Why do we see so much Greek and Egyptian architecture in Nashville?
That's because there was a desire to merge the ancient ideas of Athens and ancient Egypt into what is presently the New South. So the idea of Athens, Georgia, the idea of Memphis, Tennessee, the idea of Nashville, all combining to be a kind of a quasi-Masonic instantiation of these ancient cultures. And That's relevant because Plato in the Timaeus says that all of the mysteries of the ancient Greeks, particularly Pythagoreanism and Platonism, they actually come to us from the ancient Egyptian priests. And Solon, who taught Socrates, got all that from the high priests of Egypt. And that's essentially a kind of a pantheistic nature religion is what the ancient Egyptian theology was. And it shifted a little bit into the Greeks to make it dualistic, to where nature is kind of Gnostic, like what exists is evil and there's a creator. It's different in the ancient Egyptians. It's actually pantheistic, where everything that exists is a manifestation of God.
What is the difference between the monotheism of Akhenaten's Egypt and Christianity?
You have the idea of God being personal, and God being personal who creates out of nothing. And this is very different from all of the pagan accounts. So Genesis is unique because Genesis presents the creation of a personal God out of nothing. It's not like the Masons say, a architect working with existing materials. This is also what Aristotle and the Greeks taught. So God is unique because God creates out of nothing.
So actually, my joke was not totally a joke. As you can see, the ancient Greeks, especially Plato, they taught eugenics. They taught nature worship. So the idea of ancient Greek philosophy, eugenios, racial purity, are not completely disconnected. In fact, Plato even said that you had to cull the herd, cull the masses to create the perfect republic. When the invading armies of the Titans attempted to take over Nashville, this catapult was actually used by Toby Keith himself to destroy the heathen armies. And as he says, this is your wake-up call. How do you like me now?
Can you explain the difference between the Masonic Grand Architect and God?
That's a good question. Yeah, so the idea of an architect is somebody who works with existing materials, whereas our conception is that God freely creates, and he creates out of nothing. So it's an action of his will. So we make a distinction between his essence and his will, because creation wasn't necessary. It wasn't a Platonic idea where things just flowed out of his essence as emanations, but that he freely chose to create, just as you or I could freely choose to or not to create something. So God created this world out of his own goodness to display and to share his goodness with his rational creatures. So that's very different from almost all the world religions and pagan conceptions of God. And ultimately, Freemasonry reduces to just a kind of an abstraction. God is sort of a symbol. That's why he can be any other religion's God. And he's not a personal God that you can have a relationship with. So those are big distinctions that we have to make. And that's why the doctrine of creation is so important, is that we believe that the ground of reality is actually personal, a personal God. It's not impersonal, it's not an abstract force. And that's what you get in most of those religions, whether it's ancient Hinduism or whether it's Freemasonry or whether it's Aristotle or Plato. The God of those religions is an unknowable thought thinking itself, an abstraction, something like a number. And while we do think numbers reflect the mind of God, God is much more than a number.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Battle of Toby Keith?
Yeah, if you look over here, this whole area of Nashville back in the 1800s was actually bombed. And as I mentioned, inside the Temple of Athena, there were catapults, and it was actually Toby Keith, great warrior, who utilized those catapults to essentially, as the phrase goes, put his boot in the anus of all those who would stand against America and against Nashville. That was back in the 1800s, around the time of the Civil War. So that's one reason we hail Toby Keith so highly in Nashville. He's essentially the patron saint of Nashville.